let me set the scene. The location is the White House in Washington, D.C., on the planet Earth. The date is June 1st, 2017. The time is 12:38. And the speaker is me as Mother Earth. To say I'm disappointed would be overwhelmingly an understatement. How could you, Washington? How could you pull out of the Paris Accord? How could you turn your back on the most universal, single most issue in this time? Do I have to spell it out for you? Okay, all caps. CLIMATE. Climate change. A little bird tweeted to me that you think climate change is weather. Okay, fine. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that I'm not getting hotter and that climate change is a false belief. Will you please indulge me for 8 minutes while I point out some other glaring facts that cannot be denied? I'll just pick a few. Plastic pollution, ocean acidification, deforestation, and mass extinction. What are you going to do, Washington, about the more than 18,000% increase in plastic consumption since it was invented in 1950? More than 8 million tons of plastic are flowing in my oceans because of this. If you continue at this rate, in just 7 short years, there will be 1 ton of plastic for every 3 tons of fish. Don't think for a second, Washington, that sea life is not affected by this. A plethora of species, more than 600, are impacted by plastic pollution, from plankton to whales. And don't forget, what goes in my ocean goes in you. What are you going to do, Washington, about the highest bleaching of coral since 1900? The bones of my ocean are becoming very brittle from the acidification of their watery home. Even if we don't talk about the weather, you can't deny that there is definitely an increase of carbon in my atmosphere. And my oceans help absorb at least 30% of this. But when carbon increases in the atmosphere, it also increases in my oceans. And it's making it very difficult for coral and other calcifying organisms like oysters and clams and sea urchins to make their skeletons. Changing my ocean chemistry puts its entire food web at risk. What are you going to do, Washington, about deforestation? Every single day, more than 75,000 football fields worth of my forests are being slashed and burned. My leafy lungs are being chopped lobe by lobe. I must warn you, if this continues, all of the rainforests will vanish in the next 100 years. What are you going to do, Washington, about the 26,000 species that are being threatened with extinction? including 41% of amphibians, 34% of conifers, 33% of reef-building corals, 31% of sharks and rays, and 25% of mammals, 13% of birds. I'm here to tell you, this is not fake news. We are now in the midst of the 6th mass extinction of plants and animals. We are currently experiencing the worst wave of species die-offs since the dinosaurs left 65 million years ago. However, this time it's not from an asteroid striking at me. And it's not even Gary Larson's theory that they died from cigarette smoking. No, this time 99% of these endangered species are at risk because of you. Your human activities, from destroying habitats to overfishing my oceans, and all of the unconscious acts in between. The ironic thing is, I'll survive. I'll survive this mass extinction, just as I did before. But you, my dear, are now one of the threatened species. You need to wake up from this childish, selfish, all-consuming dream of yours. It's imperative that you get your head out of my carbon-filled cloud and re-examine your relationship with me. First and foremost, I am not a commodity. The Cree Indian proverb states it so eloquently. Only when the last tree has died and the last river has been poisoned and the last fish has been caught will we realize we cannot eat money. Second, I am not just your home. I'm your only home. But in truth, I am so much more than that. I am your first mother, Washington. My sky fills your lungs. My oceans, lakes, and rivers quench your thirst. My flora and fauna satisfy your hunger. My forests and jungles heal your illnesses. I am here to give and to nurture and to nourish. But you can't keep taking without a fraction of responsibility, of reverence, of reciprocity. I can regenerate, but I need your help. I hope you can agree that we are in this together. You are a leader for the world, and I want to be proud of you again. My dear Washington, but you don't have much time. So wake up, Washington. Please wake up. Now that I have your attention, are there any questions? Mr. Weatherman.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the weather, Carl.
Listen, let me say off the record here that I totally agree with you. Okay, now let's go into the speech. All right, you've addressed Washington as if Washington can cure all these issues. What are you doing about China and India, which are far more polluting than the United States? What are you doing about Brazil, which is the nation that's cutting down the rainforest, not the United States? What are you doing about Venezuela, that I have physically seen dump their trash into the ocean and end up on the beaches of Aruba? What are you doing about these people? And Washington's only a small part of the global problem.
Thank you, Carl. Well, I'm here addressing Washington today, but you can better believe that I am going to go to every Toastmasters club in those countries and address them too. We'll start there. We know there are leaders in Toastmasters, and leaders make things happen. Thank you for the question. In lieu of any other questions, I want to leave you.
Oh,
Fred, go right ahead.
Do we have time?
I think we have time.
A quick comment. I think one reason why you addressed Washington is we're the only country that pulled out of the Paris Accords.
Thank you.
And I think you have a very important message for the world. I congratulate you on that.
Thank you, Fred. I really want to leave you with an excerpt from a book that I'm reading right now. It is called Braiding Sweetgrass. And it's actually what I think can help with the problem that we're all facing together. And it's a perspective of how we can live with Earth. It's actually an old way from the indigenous people who lived here and called it Turtle Rock. One of their descendants, Robin Wall Kimmerer, describes our relationship like weaving a basket. She says starting the basket is very difficult, especially when we're weaving the first 2 rows. But when we add the 3rd row, things start coming together. The give and take takes hold, and we begin to become whole. So here's the excerpt. In weaving well-being for land and people, we need to pay attention to the lessons of the 3 rows. Ecological well-being and the laws of nature are always the first row. Without them, there is no basket of plenty. Only if that first circle is in place can we weave the second. The second reveals material welfare, the subsistence of human needs, economy built upon ecology. But with only 2 rows in place, the basket is still in jeopardy of pulling apart. It's only when the 3rd row comes that the first 2 can hold together. And I have more if you want to hear it afterwards, but I see a red light.
And especially Mother Earth herself. As an experienced Toastmaster, I believe the only thing she could have done better is if she'd had a sprig of ivy in there to set us up with the fact that she was in fact Mother Earth, and perhaps pull those ivy pieces out as she's being annoyed with whatever Washington has to be doing. Your setup was perfect. You gave us the date, the place, you told us who you were, so we had no misconception that you were Annette, you were Mother Earth. Which, as an experienced Toastmaster again, you have a plethora of experience and a myriad of ideas to place for this speech that was just marvelous, especially if you happen to be a Democrat and not so fond of Mr. Trump, which I did feel was your focus. So if that's something you don't want to be happening, that might be something you consider. Otherwise, it was fabulous, especially if you're in a Democratic situation. This speech is going to go over like gangbusters. You were effective. I would have liked to have seen you finger pointing more like Mom and do the mom look. I'm still doing it. A couple of seconds of doing that mom look when you're talking about this kind of a thing, when you're being Mother Earth and you are chastising somebody. I love the idea that you began with telling us where you were with the Paris Accord. That was an important point that Fred brought up, is that's what you were talking about, because Carl did lose that point, as did I. I got messed up with that. I think that could have been a stronger thing you could have stated, making it, that's the Paris Accords. You could have said something on the order of the Paris Accords, therefore I'm going to give a little slack to the others of you who happen to be polluting our entire Earth. Hello, everybody. So that would be something I would be considering. Marvelous speech. You were glaring. Your glaring facts actually were glaring. They were fascinating. You can't stop taking. I need reciprocity. That was hard for me to say as well. Very professional. You're ending with basket weaving. You didn't have enough time. This speech should be a 15-minute one. Come back and do it for 15 minutes and do it that way. Wouldn't everyone agree? This is a longer speech, and I think you should do that, absolutely, Mother Earth. Come back and knock us dead with this one. It was fantastic this time. Thank you so much. Yes, Washington, every single state within the world, globe, knock it out of the park, clean this place up. Thank you, Mother Earth.